just tuned to it, Mike. Here we go. From Western North Dakota, the men and women in blue are coming at you straight off the cuff this morning, early in February 2022. It's unbelievable how fast time's fasting, but how fast time is flying by here.
Flying right by. I can get my sound up here. There we go.
Yeah, I got you. Got changed up. Morning, Mike.
How we doing?
I'm doing good.
It's been a while.
It has been. And that is what we've been told in the community too. Over the weekend, I was sharing before we started the conversation on the recording that a couple from church had kind of reached out and wanted to know when you were going to be up to the Mad Mixin' for us next, because they had caught up to speed with all of our podcasts so far. So.
Right. Yeah. So it obviously the holidays came and went. We had it's always that first part of the year that's a little hectic for any government agency, right? So we got the new budget coming online. There's a lot of new programs, a lot of new things we're doing. So not that this necessarily took a back burner, but there's only so much time in a day. But now, hey, we're here.
Yeah, no. So I think it's just exciting that people are obviously wanting a little bit more, and they're paying attention to the conversations that we're having here in the room. And today, I for right out of the gates, I mean, when you think law enforcement and you think the boys in blue and you think the backbone of the profession, right, you think patrol. And that is what it is, the history as it goes. And we're going to talk a lot of patrol today with the man that's leading the charge over the patrol division currently. We're going to kick it over to him in a second. And so, I don't know, what anything else been going on, Mike, for you?
Well, yeah, the big run up here, like I just mentioned, is just getting us spun up here for the first year, and got the new budget to work with. But right out of the gate here, just something that's kind of I've been finding somewhat interesting, but I think it's just the sign of the times that we're in is how our operations are being affected by the supply chain shortage, right? So every year for our patrol budget, we usually budget 3 to 4 patrol cars every year, and we rotate those out. Typically, we try not to get those high mileage, under 100,000, and we swap them out. There's obviously issues that can arise if we don't do it sooner than that, and we need to make sure that we can get to scenes quickly and safely. So part of that is we're budgeting every year for new vehicles. But this year, in particular, with the chip shortage and whatnot, now we're running into issues with getting the vehicles here later than sooner. So we're looking, instead of March-April timeframe, usually when we get them, we're all the way into June, July, and that's only for the vehicles themselves. And then on top of that, we're talking about we've been notified by our suppliers that everything from like the gun locks and the vehicles and the light bars, there's delays on those that are affecting us being able to get everything up and going. So yeah, I mean, and with all of those, I mean, how lucky we are with the equipment that we do have, and the things you always talk about, how fortunate from our citizens and generous our commission and the support we have to have nice squads and nice things like that. But I mean, the wear and tear from the day to day that these guys are out there running around on our near 300 miles of streets, it takes a toll. Yeah, after a while, so we have to make sure, and that's what we pride ourselves at, especially at the department. I think a lot of the guys around you that they get in, especially ones that are coming from an outside agency, they get here and wow, you guys got some nice stuff here, and we do. We've been blessed by a very supportive commission that's allowed us to procure a lot of different technology and different things. I think I don't know, maybe this is the time to kind of segue into kind of what you've been looking at is on the training aspect of it. We're kind of venturing down some initial scoping of virtual reality training that's kind of starting to creep up on the market. Yeah, technology in a great way providing to the profession, and we're trying to get down a road where the virtual reality end of it is going to be coming more and more and more into our training lives and world for the efficiency side of it, especially up here in North Dakota when we have this, this 8 months out of the year where we're in freezing weather and we're trying to play with the environment and finding weather that's optimal to get outside and do things. We still want to do that, but to maximize and be efficient, we got to get virtual reality will help us with some of the reality-based stuff, stress-based stuff, scenario stuff, to get our officers fully immersed, and that's coming. There's 3 or 4 companies that we're looking at investing some money in, yeah. And we demoed one here recently. I had a chance to put them on before, and I'm not. Have you done like the Oculus, like the commercial one? Have you ever done an Oculus set before? Yeah, I almost broke my hand the first time I did it. It was some that have
maybe experience that are listening. But
right.
yeah,
it's just a tremendous from what's out there. Just in the realm of the civilian market. The PS4. My boys and I we have the the PS4 version of it, and it's good. Had the Rocky Balboa one here the other day that we were going after, and just how realistic you get in there, and you're standing toe to toe with these computer generated things, but it's so realistic nowadays. And so now some of these law enforcement companies are seeing that benefit, and there's a market definitely to be had there, and obviously they've demoed us, and they've kind of got us on the line a little bit, really interested. And I think just having that added level of realism. Our virtual room is obviously very good, but this is just that next step. Now this is the next best thing that's going to be up there for us to be able to train our officers to the absolute best standard in North Dakota.
Yeah, I really want to dive down this hole further when we get into some future podcasts on the training end of it, use of force and stuff, and talking about some of the learning habits and getting our listeners to understand, because they have this perception from things that they see on TV, which are oftentimes so often inaccurate. So we want to try to get them educated, and that's going to be some heavy stuff we'll be talking about.
Looking forward to it. That's going to be a good one.
We don't get very many opportunities to get each other up in front and get after them from a coworker standpoint. And so I have a smile on my face as I say that. I'm going to enjoy this conversation thoroughly today, all in a good way and good fun. But for everybody, we got all the lieutenants of the Dickinson Police Department in the room today, and the one that we're teeing up for you guys is none other than Lieutenant Matthew Hanson. Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Maddie,
how's it going?
Good.
How's it feel to be on that side of the table today?
Yeah, so I'm just watching you two do your thing back and forth.
You see where this
soaking
is
it in, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, how many of these did you watch before to try to make sure you didn't get a curveball caught at you or something like that?
Well, the right answer would be to say I've watched all of them. But,
Touche.
Well played.
Touche.
Played.
So I think Patrol Lieutenant, backbone of the police department. Matt, why don't we? Before we get into some of those things in the chief's mission, philosophy, and getting our people up to speed on our patrol division, why don't you tell the community a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been out in Dickinson. I actually hit my 10-year mark here with the PD here later this month. Before I was with the PD, I was still local, still here at Dickinson. I was over at the Stark County Sheriff's Office for a few years. Came over here fresh out of college. I got my bachelor's degree over at Moorhead State and did my basic academy work through Alexandria Technical College the summer between my junior and senior year. I am an East River kid, so I grew up in North Dakota.
You got to tell them, though, they're going, where at North Dakota?
Yeah, Lemoore, North Dakota. Little town of Lemoore, North Dakota. Lemoore, North Dakota's produced a lot of good cops out of there. There's a few troopers out of Lemoore. There's some Burley County Sheriff's officers, and my brother also, currently a North Dakota law enforcement officer. But so I grew up, born and raised. Small farming community is basically what Lemoore is, about 1,000 people. Active in sports. Met my wife when I was basically probably about 5 years old. We're high school sweethearts. We went through school together. Everywhere from kindergarten through graduating senior year. We relocated after graduating, came out here. Both of us got lucky. Dickinson's been a great community for us, and she's been working in the school systems ever since 2009. Like I said, I've been working law enforcement and moved over here to the PD, and times have been great for me. I've had a great path, had a lot of good leaders to help steer me in my career in the right direction. And just really happy to kind of share my story and to bring a little bit of light at what the police department here can bring to new recruits or even guys that are coming up.
Let's talk about the spark itself at the beginning for you. What's your earliest memory of wanting to do the job?
So I'm one of those kids. Kind of grew up, maybe that's Sergeant Stocky, the SRO. Sergeant Stocky could have been in my school and maybe steered me in a straighter path. But I found myself, typical troubled kid in North Dakota, trying to buy some time and doing silly things, nothing crazy, but ran into some deputies, ran into chief of police at times, and I would love it to be a great story that like these guys impacted my life and steered me around, and I wanted to join the boys in blue because of how good they were to me. But
as you know, those juvenile records are sealed, so you're good.
They're sealed.
Fine. Yeah.
Right. So, I'm such a happy-go-lucky guy. I mean, it's tough to see me without a smile on my face, and I just felt that there was more personality to this. Like this, we're both humans in this, and people make mistakes, and I just kind of had that piece in me that this is what I wanted to do, and I just wanted to make a better impact on people's lives than what was being made on me, and kind of took it almost as a grain of salt that I can do what he's doing, but maybe I can put a little bit of a better twist on it.
Did you have much of a response from the family, when this thing started to sprout and go a particular direction in life?
So I have an uncle, might be my mom's youngest brother. He's been a deputy sheriff. He's actually the undersheriff right now, right outside of Seattle, out in the Washington district. He's been out there for years. He's getting close to retirement age. Been out there for 20 plus years. So we had law enforcement in the family. This wasn't, an incredible jump. But this was also before the time of law enforcement that we see today, and some of the fears that maybe some families have as far as jumping into the career path, and some of the dangers that are much more present and much more visible to us today. I bet you if we had my mom in here and you were talking to her and asking her what she feels about 2 of her 3 sons being in law enforcement and the other one having aspirations potentially. I still have a high schooler in the family and my little brother, but she would probably have a different answer. Maybe at times it's made her feel uneasy to a certain degree, but we have a strong military presence in our family and things like that. So we do have a family of service, and I didn't get negative feedback. I guess it was my dad is an old school type, very old school, born and bred North Dakota and hardworking farming kind of a guy, and not a lot of times where he would like grab me around my shoulders and tell me he's proud of me and stuff. But there was times coming through this, like graduating the police academy, like there's moments that stand out to me. So I knew I was on the right track.
Yeah, I know that for sure. There's gonna be some of the listeners that are gonna like to hear some of that. From the homegrown standpoint, that's one of the biggest parts I think people appreciate when they're hearing it in homegrown. Regionally, having those sorts of values and stuff that we're about here in law enforcement in the state of North Dakota. That's pretty awesome to hear. What about so the progression as a family man and stuff here? How's the career been with the family for you? Since you've made the move over here to Dickinson, and there's been a lot of crap, that has been happening. A lot of stuff we've been growing and going through, and to talk a little bit about that for the listeners, because you got obviously a beautiful young family, and I think that would be nice for them to know a little more about.
Yeah. So like I said, Dickinson really has been an excellent community for me and my family. My wife and I, we moved over here in 2009. Both of us still trying to set roots. We didn't have any connections here to Dickinson. I had been out here a couple times to Dickinson for sports, college sports, high school sports, things like that, bringing me to this area. But outside of that, I don't have family members that had brought me over here. So it's 2 young kids just graduating college, starting their career professions off, and we ended up having our first child. And that's kind of what started to set some roots for us, and we start to build our careers. And she's moved on and progressed in her career. I've progressed in my career. And then just moving here, anybody who's been here long enough and Dickinson's their home knows that I got here in 2009. Not a terrible time to get here, right? Pre-boom. And was smart enough and purchased, property and things like that before the boom. So that helped me out. But as far as the home life and things, like there's been definite challenges. So I have 3 little ones, and this is a new venture. I've been in the lieutenant's seat now for, I think it's been about 8 months, and this has been new for the family. To be able to see Dad on a more regular basis and to see me on weekends and not have to worry about me switching my schedule, because my lineage coming into this was, I really was just a street cop. That's what brought me to my spot is, from 2009 until mid last year, I was swing shift. I would be working night shift. I'd be working weekends. I was away on Christmases. I missed birthday parties. I missed a lot of stuff. So, the load that my wife carried for those 13 years that she was kind of running solo half the year. She kept it together, and she's done well with it. I think she appreciates the second hand now that she gets now shuffling kids around as they're getting older and chasing basketball practices and school drop-offs and all that stuff.
So her excitement about you working nights and being away and all that stuff, that was all just that was a front. She actually missed you a lot. She was happy.
I like to think that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
No.
I think it is, it is really kind of an underserved narrative that we really don't preach out. The spouse, the support and whatnot. Lieutenant Hanson and also Sergeant Mosier here, they've kind of been pivotal in something new that we've been trying to gear up with our department. Some departments are starting to do it more nationally, but we're finally starting to latch on to it. And maybe just talk a little bit about the spousal support group that our department's starting.
Yeah, so it's kind of a multiple faceted project that we're working. I can't take full credit for it. This was a Sergeant Mosier idea that he kind of had sprung. It's been in the works for a while, but it was just an idea that I thought that it was just so crucial for our department to have something. We do a really good job as far as bringing the staff in and making them feel like they're part of more than just, you're not an employee here. Like the people care about you. Like this is a family atmosphere. And one thing that I thought was lacking at times was our shifts, those 7 guys get really tight. But potentially the guys that you're not seeing on a day-to-day basis, you sometimes get on the wayside, and there's a lot of connections, a lot of spousal connections, family connections. When somebody's gone at the academy, they're away for a long time, and you're looking to try to build more of a family atmosphere. So what our efforts were, a couple things. We wanted to bring new staff members in to include families, aunts and uncles, grandparents, close friends, things like that. Explain what is police work. What does it look like nowadays? What is going to be asked of your loved one? Let them ask us questions, and just be an open book. Show them our building, show them our tools, show them some of the tactics and some of the things that we do as far as a police department, and just really be an open book to it, and then put our information out there also, and talk about what is our department's goals and how do we want to utilize the talents of your loved ones. And we're still in the beginning stages of this, but we would like to continue this on and really push this as a yearly onboarding piece for officers also. So all of our officers are going to come in, and we don't get together a ton as an entire department. Just with we're always being called upon 365, so somebody's got to be sleeping to answer the call at night. So it's just we just wanted to do more, bring more time and more interactions amongst all of us in blue.
I think people that hear that it kind of raises their antenna, like that's kind of a neat thing, and how can they contribute to that? And they're not like directly, in touch with somebody at the Dickinson Police Department. Recently, all of our spouses developing the City of Dickinson Police Auxiliary Group. That's mission is heavily centered around this one of a leg or a portion of what you're talking about here, Matt. That I think if there's listeners out there and you guys are looking to contribute or you want to help support something like that, that is the cause. City of Dickinson Police Auxiliary Group. You can get online, kind of follow them, reach out to the police department here and put you in touch. But that is a group of spouses that has been organized. That is their primary focus is supporting us up here at the police department in the wellness capacity and stuff you just said.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It wasn't a plan necessarily to start our project and have them start their project at the same time, but it really has morphed into a very co-op effort, and we're both off and running, and I think it's going to be set in the right direction. And yeah, any support, they're a brand new group, so any support that they can get, I know that they've been active already in their new venture, but yeah, any support they can get, they would appreciate that auxiliary group.
We get both listeners from in-house, out-of-house on this, and so the in-house stuff, I know they kind of, they always seem to be listening to one part of it, but our out-of-house listeners here, they want stories, Matt. They want stories. They want to hear things, and they want the nitty-gritty of it. What about, this career you talked about coming in 2009, and Mike and I, from here and sharing some of the chronological order of this, but from your personal end of it, throughout the career, let's talk highlights and lowlights. What are some of the most exciting, unexciting things that have kind of been a part of your career so far that people can resonate with here in Dickinson?
Yeah, so it's been a long time. When you look back at some of the stuff that, as you guys probably have, and you think about some of the stuff early in your career before you kind of had a real solid head on your shoulders, it seems like a career ago. But so I came early 2009. So you think movie gallery robbery, Alabama suspects. That was about Matt I think I'd been on for about 6 weeks, give or take. I didn't have my hand in that, but I got some of the back end things of that. Like I did some hospital security for suspects, and at least at that point in time, got to taste what exactly is this that we're getting into.
And for our new listeners, what were just the basics of that, so they could hear? Maybe they could search it out if they haven't heard it before.
Yeah, so here in little old Dickinson, North Dakota, we ended up getting some of America's most wanted, 4 fugitives on the run, and they ended up coming through our town, kind of running low on cash, running low on funds, found themselves in the heart of town. We had a movie gallery, which was a DVD rental place for anybody who wants to look at what a DVD is.
What are those? Yeah.
Quiz the kids on that.
So they came in and they basically did, our strong armed robbery with a firearm, trying to get some money out of a movie gallery. And then officers had basically come into contact with them. We had multiple agencies involved in this. It was between us and Blue here. We had our both of our partners in Brown, but both the Highway Patrol and the Stark County Sheriff's Office. But yeah, it was a very stressful, chaotic time. I mean, they had sent rounds at officers through squad cars as we were pursuing them. Took us to a farmstead south of Gladstone, where there was a standoff. SWAT teams were called out, and we're able to peacefully bring a couple of them out, and then a couple of them decided not to come out peacefully, and then that problem was solved.
Yeah, it ended up in a deadly force situation for our people that were out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, that's 6 weeks into the game. That's 6 weeks, and so we're still pre-boom.
Yeah, we're pre-boom here. So fast forward a year, and my head maybe is a little bit more solid on my shoulders, but still, anybody who's in this career path and anybody who's a cop listening to this, you haven't hit your stride. You're still figuring things out. You're still swallowing water pretty fast in a year in. It was just a casual day. I was Stark County deputy at the time, hanging out in the old Badlands Human Service Center building, watching a prisoner who was basically getting some mental health treatment at the time. Spent most of my day there, nearly 8 hours of my shift at this facility. I heard my partner check on duty. He was coming to relieve me. Right before he came in, we got a call that came out just north of Belfield. Call for service was that there was an individual outside of his house with a handgun. He knew who the guy was. It was a friend of his with a handgun, and he thought he wanted to hurt him. So I hear this call come out, and I'm just leaving Dickinson here. Just got relieved. Got about 15 minutes of my shift left. Start responding out towards the Belfield area. This call evolves, and the individual comes inside the house, ends up actually shooting the 911 caller. We get another 911 caller on it, who is the female in the house. Verifies, yep, this guy came in. We know who we're dealing with now. We know we have at least one victim. I'm exiting the interstate off-ramp about the time that the suspect is now exiting the farmyard, which is within eye distance of the interstate there. So I find myself the second car in a slow-speed pursuit of a guy who had just attempted murder on another individual in Belfield. Slow-speed pursuit through Highway 85, right through the heart of Belfield, basically. Stop on the south side of Belfield, and just your very typical individual who is just dead set that law enforcement's not going to change his mind that day. He exits his vehicle, officers are there, guns drawn, he has a gun, trying to communicate with the individual, and eventually communications break down, and he ends up displaying a deadly force situation, pointing a firearm at one of my partners, and myself, along with a couple other officers, ended up taking deadly force use of action on that. So here I am now, a little over a year, in my tenure as a law enforcement officer, and it's just, my eyes were wide open. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into. I'm born and raised in North Dakota, and this was a very new territory for me, but a lot of really good life lessons that we can give and share and improve upon our services, as administrators here now from that.
I'm not sure if it's a good thing. I'm sorry, Mike. I don't know if it's a good thing or not that I often hear when we bring these conversations up about deadly force, sometimes our community very surprised to hear the stories on the frequency throughout our 15, 16 years up to in the room here with Lieutenant Hanel, how often it's occurred throughout the course of it. But it is much more, and with the we're looking at half a dozen throughout the course of our careers here that
sounds about right. Yeah.
that we're all aware of, either been a part of or had some sort of hand in, or have dealt with. And so, for it just is always like, well, when does that ever happen here? And you're like, you bring up these instances, and often it seems like they're pretty taken back by it. But I interrupted you, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to kind of go down that same path, just the rarity of it, but having that mental preparation, even though you were a year in, it kind of just speaks to the type of person Matt is. Just being able to have his faculties about himself and that quick decision making, and we're starting to train that more and more about that. The physiological side of that, and just unpacking that point a little bit more. Just so some of the listeners or some people that are really interested in the law enforcement aspect of it, there's a lot of physiology that goes in that split second time frame, that decision making point. Yeah. Do you looking back at that, do you recall what you remember? Oftentimes some say auditory exclusion or tunnel vision. Do you remember experiencing any of that or noticing any of that decision point?
Yeah, really good question. So up until this point, I didn't know, I hadn't done any research into that territory basically. Yeah. But looking back at it, once this started to become something that I wanted to look into because of what you talked about, the auditory exclusion and visionary thing, it was very unusual because live, real time as it was happening, I was actually able to, so I had an M16 rifle with me, which would be like an AR-15, just an older platform of it. And people thought that I was lying or that I was making something up, but I talked about being able to visually see my bullet exit I visually seen it. The other unique thing that I found was I had no recollection that I actually had my siren on. New officer, silly. But I had my siren on, and I was standing at my door of my driver's side door. So my head would have been right next to my light bar, basically, figure. And I had there was no noise that I was hearing. Very unusual circumstance to my situation was I actually had, so he was going to an area where he was planning on inflicting more damage to family members. It was actually a close friend of his that he had shot earlier, who ended up surviving the situation, but he was going to inflict more damage on family members that were at this farmyard. And I had his sister-in-law and his nephew right at my left side of my vehicle. So it was just, my attention was drawn in several different directions, but I have no recollection of hearing anything. If I spoke to them, I guess I just don't recall if I did or not. But yeah, definitely both of those, the visual and the auditory, were very present.
Yeah. Well, take us into the boom.
Yeah, so, I had a good time. I worked under Sheriff Clarence Toohey, for any of you local Dickinson people here. And the sheriff and I got along great. And I really, he's the one that propelled this career for me out here in Dickinson. Was given some good training opportunities, made the most of some opportunities that I had. A couple of the highlights that I had through early career stuff was I was pretty active with traffic enforcement, specifically like seatbelts was one of the areas for whatever reason. I good North Dakota kid, wear my seatbelt, and it got noticed somewhere in the DOT system here in North Dakota. They ended up asking me to go out to Washington D.C. and be a part of a panel of officers that secondary enforcement states around the country. So I was able to do that. Went out to Washington D.C. Had my hand in developing some programs that we actually currently use today. I'm pretty happy of one of the programs. It's actually now mandated that all North Dakota law enforcement officers that have to or would like to participate in like the occupant protection grant, which would basically be a car seat or a seatbelt grant time, actually have to follow a course that I had a hand in creating. And you can follow that by listening to my podcast version of that I got to do during COVID times. But so I had some of that. Came over here to the Dickinson PD because my style kind of fit what the vision of this department. I was a bit more active. I'm really personable. I kept seeing all of the officers from the blue side getting to deal with a lot more people, a lot more engagement than I was having at the sheriff's office. That was one of the bigger things. Is there's a difference to law enforcement. We all wear a badge, but we specialize in different things. And I thought that my talents would potentially be better suited over here at the Dickinson Police Department. Luckily, Captain Ciani at the time and Chief Dossinger gave me a chance. And so since I came over here, I actually worked under Lieutenant Hannell, was my first sergeant. Got spun up on FTO. And like I said, people have seen certain things, certain drive in me, and I've just tried to maximize that. Through the boom, it was a lot of highs and a lot of lows. We would go through days where it was you're trying to catch a breath because we were there was some shifts where you were scrambling, you were running. We took a lot of people to jail for a lot of serious offenses with not a lot of manpower. I wouldn't say we were unsafe in what we did, but we were definitely stretching. We didn't have the training piece maybe that we had now. We did a lot of real life training. You look back and be like, oh, maybe we'll do it this way next time.
Yeah, be thankful that it just went okay. Yeah. What about, once tell the listeners, let's dive into the patrol itself and current day. You think about where you were when you started. Maybe talk a little bit about how when you were hired by the PD, as you saw it, and then let's explain to them so they understand when they see those black squad cars out there with that baby blue patch on it. Talk to them about the makeup of it.
So when I first came on, this doesn't seem like that long ago, but we didn't have a lot of the techniques and tools and things like that we have now currently. I was still handwriting tickets. I was still handwriting warnings when I first started. But, now the makeup of our shifts, we've been able to add a little bit of cushion to some officers, like I talked about when we were in the boom and we were trying to make do with some things. There was times where our minimum manpower was down to about 3 guys. We're trying to make do on it. You think about a chaotic situation and you're trying to do that with 3 officers, hoping for backup to be able to come in if they're not tied up with things. Then you look at where we are today, and our commission was lucky. We were lucky enough, and they blessed us with a few more officers even this year. As of right now, we're taking applications. We're obviously still hiring and trying to train up those new officers. But I have one crew right now who actually is sitting at 8 people. So hopefully later in this year, we have a whole group of shifts that are sitting at 8, but we have 7 guys at least. So my sergeants that are under me have a corporal that kind of assists them in a lot of the onboarding training stuff. And then they kind of oversee a lot of that initial training. And then I got a bank of 5 officers per crew. So when you look at like the additional staff that we have, it's really come in handy because as law enforcement's evolved, there's really a craft to this job. And I think nothing against some of the past law enforcement from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, but they were trying to solve every problem with a hammer. If they didn't know what to do, they would just bash it and they would figure it out some way or another. And we've done a really good job. Like it is a skilled profession. What we do on a day-to-day basis as a patrol officer, like it really is a skilled profession. You are going to be called upon in so many different areas in a given shift, in a given week, in a given month, and you need to be good at each one of them.
Let's talk, what's an average day, and as we know it here, but for the listeners, describe just what an average day, what looks like for one of our men or women.
It's so chaotic, I mean, I would love to be able to give you an exact outline of it, but I can just give you some examples. So I do my best to still try to fill in and help the street out a little bit. But so last week I came on, I was filling in for one of my sergeants who was away working the shift, and 15 minutes into my day, I get notification that I had to go do a death notification. Something that's unusual. A lot of people don't know that law enforcement do death notifications, or some may or may not. It's not a very enjoyable part of our job. Some people's skill set is much better at that than others. Some people have a compassionate side to them. Some people have a stern side to them. So that particular morning, start my day off with a death notification. Imagine going and telling a loved one that somebody very close to them, most of the time a family member, has just passed away. That's how you get to start your day. That's your cup of coffee you start your day with. Think about other things, traffic accidents. We have a lot of parents in this profession. We just handed out an award to Mr. Andy Stidham, who responded to an accident. I believe we highlighted him on the Heroes Week. Going to a traffic accident where there's a child strapped into a car seat and crawling into a car, breaking glass, crawling into a car, removing a child from a car seat. Like, these are normal things. Again, we do these types of things. Handling domestics, where maybe the spouse doesn't want to speak about the person that's been assailing them. Like, we need to be that. You need to be that person that can get the statement from that person if they want, if we can do it. You have all these things, but then at the same time, I have to be able to go to the community center and do a walkthrough and just converse with people, because that's all we are. Realistically, we're just members of this community. That's every single person that's inside of our building is just a valued member of this community. And there's times where we're asked to do things that other members aren't, but that's all it boils down to. So to give you an exact answer, it really depends on the day. A lot of people like to say like, oh yeah, let's go on a weekend. Let's go on a weekend ride along, night shift or something. And
I heard it good a while back, and it was, there's a lot of value that people will try to assign to the different things that we're tasked with as this profession has continued on. But oftentimes the value is not in what you're paying us to do. It's you're paying us what we may have to do,
Yeah.
And so when you start to comprehend it and slow that little, down, it can have a lot of deepness to it that, your head can quickly figure out, upon thought.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. But best answer I can give you on a day-to-day basis is you just really have to be prepared. When you come to work, you just mentally, you have to be prepared, whether you're going to have a stressful call, stressful situation where like the best is going to be needed from you, or if you have a situation where maybe you need to put on the social worker hat, you need to talk to some children who are in a living situation that we don't ever want to see kids in as far as law enforcement officers, or maybe it's just something simple. We're spinning up the DHS class that Senior Patrol Officer and SRO Taylor Peters are doing. I'm tasking out patrol officers with going into the high school and talking about what is a DUI investigation. So, we wear so many different hats, and that's why, like I said, it truly is a skilled profession. Communication is key. But yeah, you have to be able to read a room and read your audience and be able to communicate effectively.
So with all that you just described, a daily workload for an officer. I mean, obviously that sounds like a heavy lift, right? I mean, all the stuff that we're expected to do and whatnot, that may deter some people from even giving a first blush at even thinking about becoming this. But why? What are some counter arguments to that notion to why they really should consider this line of work?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what I said. It's just a different personality. You have some people that heard what I said, and maybe they are deterred, and they're like, "Wow, that doesn't sound like something up my alley." But those other people that heard that, it's not your typical 9 to 5. You're not going to come to work. I'm not going to put you in front of a computer, and you're not going to, put numbers into a formula and figure out somebody's taxes. Like that's not what's going to be asked of you here. And those are the people that we want to see. I can make a lot of people really good cops by teaching them tactics and giving them some knowledge and giving them some case law and making them very effective. The one task that we find as trainers that's difficult is, can I put you in a room with strangers and how comfortable do you make them feel? That's the key. I feel like that, and you can see that a little bit in an interview, but there's really that personable relationship that you got to be able to have, and you got to be able to kind of ebb and flow through calls with that.
Well, for those out there, we get into this proximal learning zone and thinking everybody's is different in the variety of the complexities of each person coming in with all these different schemas in the head, how the brain works through all their life experiences. And it's not an assembly line, and we don't want it to be an assembly line. We need independent thinkers, and we need this variance of thought process that exists in the profession. And I think that's much more accepted now than maybe once upon a time, because now we're seeing the importance of it, through the community engagement end of it. And yeah, from the FTO side, watching, some of our young men and women and dealing with the different bandwidths. It's sometimes I think people maybe question themselves too much, and in return it's like, you can do this, you can do this job. I mean, you got it there. This is why you can do it, and trying to embolden that. But
yeah, and we have 7 guys on our shift. All 7 of those have different personalities. They have different makeups. They have different things that brought them into law enforcement. I might have somebody on my shift who's past military, and what they're passionate about is, maybe mental health awareness, and they have a special connection to veterans. And that's the call that, like, if we get something, I want him to be there because he's just got a knack to solve that case. And then I might have somebody who is just so personable that if I needed somebody to walk through first on first for me, I put them in there, and it's just the crowd that just gets sucked to them. And like, it's the perfect person in a uniform. They look good and they're talking well. And then I might have a couple of guys that when I have a bad call, nasty call, those are the 2 that I want, or those are the 3 that I want solving that problem. And that's what makes, we talked a little bit about the makeup of a patrol, but that's what makes our patrol officers and our patrol shifts specifically. Like, we put real thought into some of the crews that we put together, because if I put a group of 7 guys that all have the same exact philosophy, we're going to get more of the hammer theory. We're not going to get some of the caressing that we might need. But when you need a hammer to hit a nail, you got to have it. And when you need something else, it's really unique when you watch how a highly effective crew, when you get the right 7 guys and they have the right leader and they have the right following, and you watch how they're solving these difficult problems. We can see it now from our spots when we're watching and we're reading the reports, we're watching the body cam footage. And these guys know what they're doing. They have a way, they figure each other out really, really quickly. Officers, when you shake a crew up and you put different people with people, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but they learn it fast and they learn what each other's good at, and they really play off of each other's strengths well that way.
How many total patrol officers does our city of Dickinson have right now?
Current number right now is I'm sitting at 30. So I have 30 officers right now. We have a few in training. I'm hoping to get us to 32 by the end of the year. It'd be really nice. That would give us our 7 per shift. Would really like to be able to put us together some kind of a unique shift, where whether we call it a power shift or whether we call it kind of like a strike team or something along those lines, but somebody who can really utilize their talents in a different way than just responding to calls. Maybe more of like a problem oriented, like go after traffic, or maybe it would be something where we're having trouble in a certain neighborhood. Our citizens are really good at being vocal to us, whether that be through Badlands tipsters or whether it be just communicating with us through our phone lines here at dispatch. But the other thing is, our officers are very visible. We know where problems are, and we do utilize our talents to try to solve those problems. But this would be something different, like we obviously have to have officers out there that can respond to calls, and we want to make sure that things are timely. We take great pride here wearing this patch that we talked about the boom, and we've talked about now kind of post boom, and as we're in this settling effect. One thing that everybody that's worn this patch through that time frame is very proud of, I think, is the fact that I don't know that any member of Dickinson would ever have said that the police department here in Dickinson did not have a full grasp and full protection services of the city of Dickinson. And that's an incredible compliment when you think about some of the stuff, some of the growing pains that we felt. But that's what our staff should be there for. I want us to kind of continue down this lineage of this modern day policing, and I don't necessarily want us to just go out and write every grandmother and every grandfather who might be running late to church a speeding ticket. That's not our prerogative here, but correcting behavior that needs to be corrected in whatever way we see fit. And that can be through education in the high schools, in the elementary schools, through our Facebook posts. We can do this a lot of different ways. There is an enforcement action also. But the more visible that we are and the more that we can do that, that our patrol staff, I just feel like, we are on the right path. I feel like we're on the interstate and we're accelerating right now.
Yeah, Chief Dossinger, he's not here in the room right now, but that is his sentiment as he echoes it down the chamber, and down that pipeline through us into our men and women here. That was well said. What about some other specialties that our community has on the patrol right now that would be interesting that they may not have known before, but some of these men and women that are running around on the street and specific skill sets that they're carrying with them?
Yeah, so I guess one of the other tasks that I had taken over from a partner lieutenant here of mine was newly taken over our regional SWAT team. So our Southwest tactical team. New commander to this as of 2022. So I do have several patrol officers that co-op duties. They serve on our SWAT team and they also serve on the patrol team. So you can look at duties as far as, maybe I have a breacher, somebody who's trained in actual breaching. Maybe I have somebody who's trained in like less lethal techniques than potentially like what the patrolman's equipment would carry right now. So I have things like that. I also have, we have Canine Colo. He's an interesting animal, that one.
Oh, yeah, right.
Canine Colo is, he's our only in-house patrol and narcotic dog. So he does some incredible things for us. You want to highlight one from last year was we had a weapon that had been disposed of in a wooded area. We didn't know where it was, and to foot track that thing down would have been an incredible task with a heavy workload. And he did it, and he did it in an incredible amount of time too. Like, he's just he is a special animal, and a lot of it goes to his handler, Corporal Jaden Peters, in the way that he's worked with him ever since he's basically been a puppy. But so we have canine handlers in there. We have the bike patrol also that you see very visible through summer months. And I don't know if I would want to put a bike out here today. I think it's about -8 right now. But we have our bike patrol unit that we go out there in, and then we have a new version of kind of some tactics and some skill sets that we're trying to push out here. And next month we're going to have our CIT team is going to get up and spun. And a real goal of ours was to get at least one patrol officer per shift into this new CIT training.
Tell them what CIT is.
Yeah, so it's our crisis intervention team. And, it's different when people hear that. They're assuming that it's a negotiator's tactics and techniques. And I do have some negotiators that co-op with my SWAT team that fall under the SWAT umbrella that work there too. But this is different. You've probably seen it if you follow our numbers and you see what the police department month by month is dealing with. Mental health is very real. It's not just in our community; it's just nationwide. We've put human beings in a pressure chamber here in this past couple of years when we take COVID and we take our economy and we take a lot of things, and we've pushed people about as far as we can push them, and we're seeing the remnants of that now. And this is just a way for us, because we're called upon a lot to, whether it be a suicidal subject or somebody who's feeling very depressed, potentially suicidal. If we can do something, if we as law enforcement can intervene, I think we should. And I think we should have the right tools and techniques to do that. And this goes back to the saying that I said, we're a carpenter, we should have a whole tool belt. And in the past, we hadn't been solving them with the kind of compassion and maybe caress that something like that would need. And it's just us learning what does the community need from us right now, and trying to provide our officers the adequate training so that we can solve those problems. So that would be the CIT thing.
I think the listeners should probably they might respond and kind of wonder, like, what are a lot of the makeup of these individuals. And I would add in for you that it's across the spectrum of age genres, from young men and women to your elderly men and women across the board. This last month, we just were talking about the exponential amount of mental health suicides we've been dealing with. And so
nearly double. I think, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's way beyond normal.
It is
what we've usually seen.
It is. I wish we had the specifics in front of us right now to cite those, but certainly we can get fact checked on that. But it's more than what we are all accustomed to here in our careers and have noticed. So, and it's again, young kids all the way to elders. But continue on, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's just that's a piece of what the patrol is trying to do. We see what our community wants from us, and we see what our community needs from us. And we just do our best with the numbers that we have and the budget that we work with to be able to do it responsibly, to push the kinds of training that we want to see our officers expand on. We've done really well. I think back to the last couple of years at like where our training program has gotten and how real we've been able to make training days, and it's, I think we turned a corner. We turned a real corner when we stopped training on one specific thing. When you come to training now, I'm not just going to teach you how to use the taser. You got to use your voice. You may have to use your taser. You may have to use your hands. You may have to rely on your partner. You may be in a deadly force situation, making training even more challenging than what the street can be at times. That's the goal, and that's what we've been able to accomplish. And we're seeing the remnants of that. We were tested in 2021. We had some incredible situations, and we kept coming out on top. So, like what we're doing as far as a staff, what our sergeants are doing, what our corporals are doing, what our FTOs are doing, the way that we're training these officers, we're seeing the wins. We're seeing the successes here.
You want to unpack a little bit more with the training side, like a training day that we have, these quarterly trainings that you guys have been putting together, and maybe specifically simunition, and maybe talk to the viewers and listeners about what simunition training is kind of looks like, and what a day like that is kind of like.
Yeah. So, in the past we would have your typical range, and we would hang a target, and you would show me that you can shoot your taser at a cardboard target, and it would flash lights if you hit your target. It was appropriate for the time, and we've just evolved that. And between people like Lieutenant Klauser, myself, Corporal Weiler, Sergeant Mike Hanson, Jason Zucchini, Tyler Mahoney, like we've evolved as far as a use of force instructional staff here. That when you enter that training room and that training environment, every single tool that you have on the street is going to be available to you, but they're all in a simulated version of it, right? Simulated not meaning that it's still going to hurt. You're still going to get payback for it. So we use our simulator pistols, which are basically just going to be running like our soap marking rounds. They still sting. They will break the skin on it. So we utilize certain safety gears, but we also have taser cartridges that can be deployed on suits that we wear in these situations. We have inert OC. We have batons that aren't going to actually break bones and hurt people that way. And we learn and we videotape it, and you have to be able to be willing to allow critical feedback to happen in this line of work. And that was one corner that I think had been turned in the years past is, we always were like, well, don't be critical of somebody else. We weren't there. And it's okay to be critical. There's a healthy way to do it. And we've really tried to do that here. Everything from having our officers wear their body cams during these so we can evaluate what did they see at what time, getting a bird's eye view of that. Like, well, maybe instead of moving to the right and engaging here, maybe we move to the left and distance is our friend. Those are the little things that we try to really beat into our patrol staff, so that when we're out on the street, when this is a live situation, it's not just for us for safety. I mean, officer safety is a two-way street. If I can make the public not have to go to the hospital because of a use of force situation, that's ideal, and so it's definitely a two-way street, and we're definitely seeing, like I said, we were tested. 2021 was one of our more, I don't know that I would call it our busiest year, potentially one of our more aggressive years, though, as far as the aggression shown on calls, the aggression shown towards officers. And so, yeah, I think that would be an appropriate way to describe 2021.
Some of the stuff I know we're sharing on our local FOP Lodge page, which you just said there, how fortunate we are, our listeners here in the community, and the support that we continue to have, and we are the community, and the community is us, because what's going on around the rest of the country, it makes you very appreciative about putting this baby blue patch on. And I know that we've talked about that a bunch of times. Maybe that takes me into one of our final questions. I know we're coming up here close to an hour, but what would you say for our listeners out there if you want them to plant the seed with them as far as this is what you should expect out of our officers? This is what, when you see our individuals, we expect to be held at a certain level of expectation here. That's how this has to work in order for this thing to work well. You got anything you could share with them that?
Yeah, I mean, we see it all around the country. When law enforcement is encountered with so many things that just the general public may not even be aware of. When I respond to a call, or one of my guys responds to a call, and that call is, Gary Smith is outside and he's waving a gun around and he's might be drunk and he runs away. This is not an uncommon call for us. As we get there, we maybe don't know what or where or who is going into things, and you see the officer's presence, and when you hear an officer ask you to do something, it's not as if that we're trying to be abrasive or we're not trying to be that authority figure. A lot of this goes into, there's so many unknowns to our job, and we'd like to check as many boxes as we can. Okay, his hands are up. He is not reaching for things. He's let me pat him down. I feel more comfortable here. You'll see it in an officer. If you put him in an elated state, the more boxes he can check, whether you're cooperative with him or not, you're going to get that same feedback from him. And we really, I would make the argument that our police department is incredibly compassionate with our community, and we have some examples of that we could get into later or next time we talk. But that would be the biggest piece is when an officer is with you, just do your best at reading the officer, being as polite as you could, being as controlled with your movements as you could if you find yourself in a critical situation. But we're just humans, we are people. And I like to think that our patrol staff treats our community. I don't know that we even have any more of those robots like, I'm Lieutenant Hanson. Give me your driver's license and your registration. I'm going to go get you a ticket. We've kind of really phased out of that. And, if I stop a car, my name is Matt, with the police department here, just going a little too fast. Where are you headed today? That was my pitch, if I stop somebody. And it's, like I said, it's just, we understand everybody's a person, everybody has things. And I get it too, that we deal with a lot of people on their worst days. And you may not be thinking of these things on those times. It's just understand this. We're a person, you're a person. And for us to be able to coexist on this rock, we have to be able to figure it out better than what's been going on through our country to this point.
2021 was a record year for officers feloniously assaulted, as some know, and if not, those numbers are pretty easily attainable. I know this one just came out today. We've had over 30 officers shot this year in the country, and there has been 5 of them have been actually killed by the gunfire. And so it's up 67% from January of 2021. And there has been a handful of these that have been of the ambush style, which is a monster trend that we have all talked about and seen in the last 2 years, where legitimate calls are coming in and there is an intentional targeting of that squad car and that man or woman in that uniform. And we know that it occurs in these monster areas, but what you're saying here is if people don't think that doesn't echo and we're not hearing it and we're not seeing it and it's not impacting us, you know very well, right?
Yeah, last year alone, we had more officers than we've ever had. Felony style assaults on officers. We had seen an uptick trend. We had several patrol officers, and I'm not talking somebody's just struggling because they didn't want to go to jail because they're too intoxicated. I'm talking about straight up somebody punching officers in the face, striking our officers, trying to disarm officers. We also had one of our critical incidents last year where we were shot at. We are not immune to this. So to think that those trends, and for our officers not to ingest that and to be putting that into their work life as they come on shift, it would be irresponsible to them, irresponsible to their partners, irresponsible to their family members. But yeah, it's something very real right now that every patrol officer is dealing with.
And it highlights the importance of the training out of it, because
Absolutely.
we have to continue to improve that's not an excuse or a cop out for any sort of behavior or anything on our end. And so I definitely am not implying or inferring that when we say that. But so I guess maybe on the last one here, before we get a little speed cuffing with you, have a little fun with you. Do you have any advice for any of our younger officers that may be listening right now? What would your advice be for a young Matt Hanson, young officer right now, or a young officer that's looking to get into this profession? You can answer that a couple ways too.
When I started, I didn't know what direction. I didn't know what pull in law enforcement. I thought that my path was going to take me to investigations. There was several years where I was in Sergeant Clauser at the time's desk and asking if I could put me in a tie, put me in a nice clothes. I can work some cases for you. And, for whatever reason, it just wasn't in my cards at the time to ever happen. But the best thing I can tell new people starting this career is it is a fulfilling career. You will find what your niche and what your passion is. And when you find it, you got to work. You have to put the effort in. We ask a lot of our people here. We're not a giant agency to where I can task out one guy with just being in charge of all of our inventory. And that's all he does. A lot of our guys do co-op duties. So they're going to be in charge of, hey, guess what? You have a call load. You're going to have to handle all your calls. And you also get to do all of our gun stuff. You get to do the ordering. You get to do the maintenance. Or maybe it'll be, hey, I need you to train these people on this day, and then I need you to take your calls on this day. But when you find what you're good at, and you find what your passion is, you really got to push for it. You got to make it your own, because in this day and age, there's so many avenues. Like we talked about, all the different hats that we wear. And if we can get one expert in each one of these fields to give all of us a little piece of that, each one of our patrol officers just gets incrementally better from that. I think you could go down the line of all of our patrol officers and what they're really good at and how they've impacted their shift in those positive ways. And it's just that, I come from a sports background, and I really do truly appreciate hard work. If you come in and you're willing to put that time in, you're willing to put that work in, effort goes a long way. And it doesn't matter what line of work, but specifically in this line of work, like that whole cop sitting eating donuts persona that's not the patrol staff that we have, nor is that the patrol staff that we ever want to create here. Like our patrol officers, you come in here but almost any time, and you'll see our gym, our little gym that we have. It's getting used. Our guys, they just like to get after it, and I think that it corresponds with just the work ethic that we have bred here. And that would be the best piece, is work for what you want, work hard for it.
Attitude and effort, two things completely in our control, huh?
Absolutely.
Attitude and effort. I'm going to make a plug in for Heroes Ball before we're all said and done, but I want to turn over to you, Mikey. Do you got anything?
Well, I do have one itching question. I've been meaning to ask it a long time. I'm not going to be putting you on the spot here, but so despite all the track record and the history and whatnot, why do you continue to remain to be a Minnesota Vikings fan? I got to know.
I blame my dad for this, right? So I have a mother from Wisconsin, and she's a Packer fan, which I don't know if you've ever found anybody who's hated the Packers quite as much as I do.
So your mother's a Packers fan?
My mother's a Packers fan.
Oh, I love this. This is great.
And my dad is a Vikings fan. So far, my mom has not won any of the kids. And I have 5. There's 5 in my family. And I blame him. And you know what? I shouldn't even say it like that, because I'm breeding little Viking fans myself, and it's just, I guess I just like the abuse. I don't know.
I'm so happy to hear she's held the line, your mother.
I've always equated being a Vikings fan to eating ice cream. It's like, it seems like a good idea at first, so you can get that like ice pick feeling right at the end of the season, and then it goes away, and next season, I'll eat ice cream again.
Or the lactose intolerance hits you, and then you run into the bathroom.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a Vikings fan in a nutshell right there.
But I'm speaking from a Bears fan, as you know, so that's good there. Matt, we're gonna tee you up here on some of the speed cuffing stuff. Any final words or final thoughts?
No, just glad to be on. Glad to kind of share some of the stories that that our patrol officers on a day-to-day basis, they don't get a chance. You might see our cars, you might see some faces as we drive by and wave to us, and maybe see us out and about. But the biggest thing I can tell you is, here our culture that we've created. I think that Chief Doskinger's done an excellent job. Is that we are no different. It's just truly, this is just a human wearing a uniform at that time that's been trained to do a job. But when you see us, that's it. That's all we are, is just a human. So, we do our best here to hold the standard and to make sure that we give our citizens the kind of compassion that we would like to see. Just glad to be a part of this community and glad to be a part of the department.
Yeah, I hope a lot of our staff take a listen in on some of the messaging and stuff, come back and helps resonate from kind of an independent sort of conversation, and from our viewers and listeners out there. The same thing, we're always looking for feedback from you guys and trying to remain that appropriate amount of vulnerable, to your guys' input and criticisms. So, Lieutenant Hannell, what do you think?
Should we key it up?
I think we should tee him up real high. So you heard that noise, a little click there, got a little speed cuffing coming up. This is going to be like a 30-second go, Matt, and this is going to be you popping off answers as fast as you can based upon how we present the information to you here. So don't put too much time into it, and just knee-jerk reactions.
I'm good at those. Good at it.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Traffic or criminal cases?
Criminal.
Warren Moon or Dante Culpepper?
Dante.
Jocko or the Sean Ryan Show?
Jocko.
Pickup or truck?
I'll go truck.
Coffee or pre-workout?
Ooh, both.
Favorite vacation destination?
I'd say Mexico.
Most looking forward to in the next year?
Gosh, you put me on the spot on this one here. I got Staff and Command coming up, and that's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is going to be good there. That's a high-level administrative training that Matt got into that'll be hosted up at Dickinson State University here in town, actually. So we should have some pretty elite administrators in town for that. But
yeah, excited for that.
Yeah, I'm going to just go on our Heroes Ball end of it's coming up on April 9th. Before Mikey kicks us off here, it's going to be a big event this year. We're expanding about 150 seats. We got our event page that's out there. We really, check it out. All of our tickets are purchased online through the internet this year, all electronic. And so, if you want to donate, you don't want to come, but you want to donate to the association, the Fire Association, and domestic violence, big part of that triage there that we got. We would really like for that. All the money goes to benefit those organizations. Heroes Ball, April 9th, 2022, August House. Check out our pages for that. So
awesome. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, this is good. I remembered from the last podcast something Jackie Martin had said, and she had said she out driving around wondering when the adults are going to show up, and then she realized I am the adult now, and I think that's kind of goes to speaking us three in the room here. Obviously Captain Ciani kind of getting pretty close to retirement here, and just the last plug here is it's a real honor to work with Matt and see him grow over the years, and all the confidence in the world we got in him to be heading up our patrol staff, and the ideas he's got and the leadership skills that he possesses. We're in a really good spot as a department. So appreciate you guys.
No, thanks. It's a journey, and we never arrive, as we know. You think you might, but it's just every day, one day at a time. So
right on. That's
awesome. So everybody out there, viewers and listeners, we need you guys to subscribe on the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, like the YouTube channel. Our Facebook page is a big one. It's going to be out there. Share it. And stay tuned. Next coming up is going to be Chief of our Fire Department, Jeremy Presnell, to talk fire, police department, first responders, public safety.
See you next time.